Greetings to you all televiewers. It is a pleasure having you once more again for another edition of Viewpoint on DBS Television. In tonight's edition, we are going to be talking about a paternity DNA test, and it is an ongoing cry all over the social media about certain issues or issues that must have happened and prompting some parents in quote to be doubting the rightful fathers of or being the rightful fathers of their children. That said, to discuss about this topic, we had to go miles to get a guest suitable for the topic, a wellness coach, and she is the founder of Humanity at Heart International. It's not the first time that we are having her with us here in the studio. She's always there as long as topics related to family or being fit is concerned. Maya Evelyn Tata Maya, it is a pleasure having you. The very first edition of this year.
Oh, Happy New Year, Vanessa.
Happy New Year to you.
It's a pleasure to be here once again, 2021. And Happy New Year to our technicians and our televiewers out there.
Happy New Year. Oh, special greetings to the technicians. Mangavena Shoes, you're welcome.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good evening to Maya. Let me greet our technicians too once in a while, you know. We take things for granted, whereas without their input,
we
yes, will not be there. So we have to recognize their place in whatever we do here. Yes.
In whatever we do here, anyway, I'll introduce them at the end of the program. Let us take the first part of the show. Rising call for parents to carry out a paternity DNA test for their children. Is this important, Maya?
At a certain extent, Vanessa, it's important.
To a certain extent. Which, yes, to a greater extent?
Yeah. Yes, to a lesser extent and not to a greater extent.
Yes, to a lesser extent. Manga in shoes?
No, Vanessa, completely it is not necessary.
No. And can there be any consequences to the act when carried out? Be it positive or negative, Maya? Consequences?
Yeah, there are consequences.
There are. Financials?
Yes, Vanessa, to me there are negative consequences.
Only?
Negative.
Only negative. All right. Yes, negative. Coming up next, let us have the debate. A rising call for parents to carry out paternity DNA test for their children. Is this important? Now, earlier in the introduction, Maya, I was saying that there is this social media campaign or with things that had happened or might still happen. A lot of parents, especially the fathers, are doubting now if they are the rightful owners of their children, given that they are kind of doubting now every woman of not being faithful. So how important is this DNA test? But you think it's to a lesser extent it's important?
Yes, I said it's important because normally legally in some areas of life you actually need it, especially when you want to travel with the children. It's required to do a DNA paternity test. And like you rightly said, statistically, it shows that 5 out of at least 25 families, the firstborn children might not be of the father of the house. So it's important that if you have doubt that this might not be my child, to clear those doubts and have peace of mind, you can go in if you are fit. To bear the consequences of your actions, you can go in for a paternity DNA test. But if you just think that it's okay, even if I'm fathering another child, it's okay, you can leave it at that and stay with your peace of mind. But the key thing here is that there should be trust in a couple's life, because when we go as far as going to DNA paternity test, it means there's lack of trust, and there's always a common saying that is the woman that actually knows the father of her child. So this is a call to women out there. If you are married or you have maybe a partner, it's always good to be faithful And you know, like there are certain circumstances that can happen. Maybe you as a couple can be in a home, maybe robbers break in, and maybe you are raped and you are pregnant and you are confused whether it is the child of a robber or the child of your husband. It's always good to talk those things out. So all these things lies on trust and faithfulness, especially on the part of the women. I'm talking this most especially with women that are in a home and yet they are still unfaithful. There is a saying, I think we always say it in pidgin, when dog bite man, no be news, but when man bite dog, no news. So it's obvious that men will have children out, but if a woman has a children out of her marital home, it's a problem. So a call to all women, be faithful. So that you don't bring in doubt.
So you're encouraging men to have children out, then the women, they cannot?
No. It's not a competition, Vanessa.
It's not a competition.
It is not a competition. Faithfulness is key. Trust is key.
But then, why is it that they will ask the women to consider more of the children that their husbands will bring, or for the man to accept that, no, my wife committed an error and so let me tolerate her, accept the child, rather they go violent on the children, on their wives?
Like I said, it's a natural system. Let me just put it, it's just natural. It's the way we are wired. It's the way from creation we are wired to be faithful, humble and meek and respectful. And the man is always having an upper hand in almost everything. So a man might cheat. A man is wired in such a way that he is open to weaknesses more than a woman. A woman is resistant. Most often I always say that women are the pillars. I keep saying it because I know that women are wired to be resistant, to be kind of slow to almost everything and think before they're acting. So imagine I trust you a lot and then you fail me. I'll feel more hurt than like you trusted me and you know that I can fail at any moment. It hurts more when I know that I've put all my trust in you and you are failing. And you trusting me, knowing fully where I can fall at a certain level in time, it won't hurt you that much. So it's just the way we are wired as women, and we are considered to be more decent than the men out there.
So in your opinion now, many people do think that women do cheat now, even more than the men. In your opinion, or the way you observe, look at the society, is that the case?
It is. Vanessa, just a quick one. I have been talking with a lot of women. It's not like I'm breaking confidentiality here on this platform. There are people that confide and say, I've fallen in love with another man. And it doesn't just end at falling in love with another man out of your matrimonial home. You go ahead sleeping with that person. It takes counseling to bring you out of that and to follow the right path.
Yes. Thank you very much, Evelyn Tata Maya, for that. Mangavena shows categorically no, you think that carrying out this paternity DNA test is not important.
Yes, Vanessa, I say it is not important for me, because some other people think that I'm coming from another space. But in reality, like Maya said, when you start thinking of a DNA test, it is a situation where you start doubting, am I the father of this child? Or you start suspecting your wife that my wife is unfaithful. And you know, they say that you cannot control a woman. Women will say that I have the authority. Yes, like she said, you have the authority over your wife, over your family. But talking about controlling a woman, you cannot. A woman controls herself. I remember we had one professor, talking of Father Bernardine Som. He taught me, and one thing that he gave us was, you know, when you give somebody freedom, that freedom becomes more than a wall, more than a fence. When you want to pretend, it's just like even the children that we have. When you look at this kind of very serious, very strict parent who always say that my child cannot go out there's 5 minutes that child, especially the girls, the 5 minutes that the girl will venture to leave the compound, the damage that she will cause. But in such a house that parents are not like, where are you coming from? Where the child knows that I am free, and the child knows that I have to respect what is the child trying to see or to experience or to experiment. But it is the same thing with women. Once you give a woman that freedom, that confidence, that assurity, that trust, she is free and she respects herself. But if you think that you can, control your wife, you must make sure that no. You're easily telling her that if you have the least freedom, you can go free. Whereas if you open up to her and trust her, forgetting every other thing, give her the confidence of doubt, like they say, she respects herself. Because I can be here this evening, I don't know where my wife is. I have the confidence that she's at home. I can be here and she's not at home. My wife knows that I'm here. Before leaving here, reaching the house, any other thing can happen. So it is for you to understand that I have this dignity, this personality, this, I have this this esteem to guard against my, so you don't go wild into any other thing. When we're talking about DNA and trying to find out, am I really the father of, if it goes out and then it turns out that you are not, what happens? To me, venturing into DNA helps crumble the house, crumbles the family. In philosophy, we say that what you do not know is not a problem to you, it does not bother you. I would rather prefer to operate in that ignorance than venturing to know. Because when you venture, there are cases like Maya said, that where you want to test the paternity of a child. In that case, especially when you want to travel, you want to prove that this is my child. In that case, you want to travel with a child. That is a different thing. It's just like looking for blood groups to see whether you can exchange or you can donate blood for your child. That's a different thing. But when it comes to paternity, and what is in your mind is you want to find out. I know people will say that in the course of traveling with the child and on doing the DNA test, and it happens that it is not your child, what do you do? Like they say in
well, there are some cases where maybe a child had an accident, there's a need for blood transfusion,
and it happens that it is
discovered that you're not the father of the child.
In ethics, they say the end does not justify the means. It is not because you wanted to help somebody that you should steal. I was not going for this DNA test because I had in my mind I'm suspecting my wife. I'm going for this DNA test because I want to prove to the authorities that this is my child. I want to travel with this child. That's a different thing. But then when it comes to start, Vanessa, let me come in from the last question you were asking Maya to find out why women women are like cheating. This call
it's an assertion anyway. According to me, it's an assertion.
It is
that women do cheat now.
It is an assertion. But then the cause of this rising call in our society for DNA tests is another form, another civilized form of saying that most women now are no longer faithful. Because, like she said, you can doubt the paternity of a child, you cannot doubt the maternity of a child. If women were not unfaithful, why should I even think of DNA? All I know that this is my child. Because I trust her, she is faithful. So the question of being unfaithful, doubting the paternity of this child should not even exist.
The men are rising because before we enter 2021, we've heard of news stories where a man died of high blood pressure after discovering that for over 70 years of marriage, his 2 children are not his. So we've had a case here in the Douala 3 where a man also almost killed 3 children because he discovered that they are not his.
And Vanessa, that is where when I look at it, you see the other aspect of a woman. Somebody always insists that when the devil met the woman, there were only 2 of them. We don't know what the devil told the woman. I mean Eve. We don't know what the devil told Eve. Because when the woman wants to cause the damage, she caused the damage. When she wants to kill, she kills. There is no midway. Yeah, because I don't understand how you live with somebody for 17 years in lies. I don't know how you live with somebody for 17 years and you know that these are not his children. And it continues. During wedding, I always like the last phrase that the officiating priest or minister always gives. He says, anybody who knows anything why these 2 people cannot live together as husband and wife, if you decide to remain silent for life.
They no longer say it.
They no longer say it.
Yes.
I don't know why they
You can just say it before the wedding, not on the wedding day.
Okay, because they are afraid that they may say it and something crops up at the very moment. Okay, why I bring that is, if the woman had gone wayward, Vanessa, we must accept the fact that there are some men who cannot father a child. That is natural. If the woman had gone wayward, which is not encourageable, if she had gone wayward to be living in such a situation of bringing in children, deceiving the man that these are his children, I would prefer that she buries that for life. Don't voice it out to the man. Voicing it out to the man is, in another way, killing the man. Because if that woman never voiced it out, the man might have lived all his life. Because this thing they say, children, you know, it is as you grew up, they told you that this is your father. Vanessa, that affinity exists naturally between you and that man. This is your father. Unless somebody will come to tell you that this was not your father. I mean, imagine at that time, for all this while you've grown up knowing that this is your father. And so that's why I think that if there is this rising call that we should carry out DNA to ascertain our paternity, it is another way of saying that our women have turned not to be faithful, and for us to kill this trend, I would think that women should be faithful, Vanessa. If we should kill it once and for all.
Thank you very much, Mange Venatius. And talking about paternity test or doubting it, we are trying to find out in the second part of the question that what could be those possible consequences of carrying out this DNA test. And I would like to know, Maya, the consequences, is it positive or negative for their both? Yeah, it's positive, negative. I think we have just highlighted some of these points for the first part. Like Mange was saying, faithfulness is key. There are situations we have highlighted a lot of people, like you are growing up, you know that this is my father, and 17 years long, and this is not my father. But there's also something that you as a father could bond with the child, that even if it is 20 years later or 30 years later, and someone comes up and says, do you know that is not your real dad? That bond is already formed. It doesn't matter whether you're biological or adopted. So bond with your child at birth, so much so that in case there is a doubt in the future, you have already bonded with that child. And I believe that if you raise a child properly, it doesn't matter who the father is, but the bond, the love you have formed with that child. And so many people find it difficult, like the case you are mentioning, that someone is about to kill 3 kids, knowing that those are not his children. It means there was no bond with those kids. And also, the paternity test is not only the women that are in trouble here. Some of the men are irresponsible, and like you doubt your own wife simply because you want to shy away from your responsibilities. I was reading a story where a lady finally found love, according to her, and got married, and not knowing that the man was actually a married man, because the man told her, you are the love of my life. The same story men will always say. And she gets pregnant and gives birth to a beautiful girl, and the man says, that is not my child. That's so heartbreaking. So the woman says, if you are doubting that this is not your child, then let's opt for a DNA test, so that you are certain that this child is your child. Because at that moment, the man is calling her a gold digger, and she's not comfortable with it. So they go to a renowned hospital for a DNA test. It's not also cheap anyways. It's, say, 100,000. Let me just quote. And above. And above. And they say, okay, you guys can go in for a DNA. So the man in question refuses that option and proposes another DNA test that is out of the country but more expensive, because he wants to intimidate the girl, knowing that the girl is from a poor background. She can't afford that. But because the girl wants to make sure that that child is his child, maintain her trust, her dignity and everything. Absolutely. So she rallies her family, and they contributed, and they did the DNA test, and that child is the man's child.
that also helps to ascertain your peace of mind. Even if he's not taking responsibilities, accusing you of cheating is another problem. Because it is not just that case. There are many cases that I've also lived. Many people come to my office and they complain. My husband, out of a sudden, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 children. The fifth child is no longer your child. And the child actually looks like you. And you are still saying it's not your child. Maybe simply because your wife is frequenting an old classmate, they are talking old stories, and you, because you have in your head they are sleeping together, that is no longer your child. That is another consequence. You are putting a stigma on the woman. The last time I was here, we spoke about violence. That is emotional violence on the woman, because you are doubting whether that is really my child. I'm taking it two ways, because some women, like Mange was saying, they will be silent for over 30 years, 40 years, and they're not telling you the truth. There is a case from our neighboring country. They have 4 kids. The lady leaves and goes to the USA and writes back because she could not stand and tell the man, these 4 kids are not your children. And then she writes back and the man commits suicide. That is a consequence of something that the man has put his hard-earned money, raised the kids as his own, and then you just like it's a bomb. You just blow it over his face. But I'm saying that the men should also take to heart that it's as good as adopting a child that is not yours, even though it also brings its own troubles. So there are a lot of consequences, not just on the woman, on the man, and the whole family. So the truth here, like Mange was saying, faithfulness, trust, and always know that the truth will always come out, even before you die. There are some parents that when they know that, so at one point it's a couple's agreement for the lady to go get pregnant outside, if in case the man is impotent. But always know that at one moment, since we always have fights in a home, it can come out. You are impotent. These kids are not your kids. You see, it's harming the man, or the man outside that is doing the job and producing the babies. At one moment, we come to claim those children in the near future. Especially if they must have made it. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Maya. Yes, Mange Venashus, what are some of those negative consequences?
Vanessa, we are talking about trying to find out. Imagine that we go to find out, and then it happens that the children are not my children. I don't think that I can still put up with that woman. The obvious answer is that family breaks up because of DNA. So,
what if it happens that they are your children? Don't you think that your wife?
Correct. That is another. That is the other angle. Because if I accused, like the example Maya was giving here, if I am the one who has suspected my wife, and then we go for that DNA test, and it happens that this the particular child is my child, that woman, if I were in her shoe, I'm backing out. Because if tomorrow another one will still come up and you will still doubt, for just that fact that
the trust is no longer there.
Correct. Just the fact that you can no longer that you did not trust me, it means tomorrow it will also be another issue and you will not trust me. Because like she said, in a family, what holds the family is trust. I trust that even I am not seeing you, I don't know where you are, I trust that you are still faithful. It is just that keeps the family. So once that trust is breached, the family is broken. Besides the breakup in the family, the future of the children is thwarted, is changed. Maya was saying you have developed, that bonding between you and the children or the child is true. But frankly speaking, a human being, when you finally learn that this is not your child, Vanessa, you run the risk of not still taking care of this child, because each time it will still remind you who is the father of this child. One, you would always try to dig to know, are they still together? Because they may still be continuing behind your back.
What happened? What did I do to her?
Correct.
A lot of questions.
All these things, and when you put them together...
Or is it that I cannot father a child, and for this amount of years I did not know?
Of course. And it may push you into... I didn't want to go into the issue of death. It may push you into trying to cause other issues, because you tend to ask yourself, which means I am not a man. All this while, if it is in this child, okay, maybe you had 4 children, and the situation is coming with this child, is not my child. You tend to doubt the paternity of the first 3 children. Maybe it was also the same situation. Maybe I'm being tagged, like they use the word in social media, tagged. So
like the case Maya cited in one of our neighboring countries, the 4 children are not his.
Of course, which means the man lived all his life in lies. Vanessa, we must acknowledge here that there are some men, like she say, who cannot father a child. It should be an agreement between the two parties concerned. Because of our situation, because of the family name, let us have children. But in this case, well, if we have to put it normally, cheating is cheating, right? And in marriage, in Christian marriage, children are not the automatic outcome or product of marriage. Children are a blessing to marriage, and once you call it a blessing, God cannot just bless everybody in the same measure. God can bless you with peace and not with a child. And if you think that because you cannot have a child, you must go outside to have one. If you go outside and you still land on another one who does not have a child, who cannot also father a child, which means you will start jumping from man to man in search of a child. So I think that in such a situation, that is why in your wedding day you opted for better or for worse. What is the worst part of marriage? It is not when she shouts at you. It is not when you come back from work and there's no food. No. The worst part of marriage is worse in all its entirety. If it presents itself, you accept. That is what makes you a married person. That is now, you are living the vows of this marriage because you say for better or for worse. So this issue of even the fact that the woman could not have a child or the man could not father a child, let me go outside. Once you go outside, that is a sin. That is a sin. You have breached the contract of marriage. You have breached the concern you gave during marriage. So I think that the idea of DNA at all level, Vanessa, if I had the power, I would have said,
is not in support.
We should abolish it completely, Vanessa.
All right, thank you very much, Mange Venashus. So, Maya, no, I would get the conclusion word from you to the women in particular, because we are mostly concerned. We are mostly the one bearing all the acts or facing all the consequences. What will you tell the women?
Great. I'm picking up from where Mange just said. If you actually, let me just speak in a context of Christian marriage. It must not only be Christian. We have listeners that are maybe Muslims and Buddhists.
A diverse audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are a woman, you know who you really are. So you should be faithful. You should at least discuss your challenges with your spouse. And like, it's not everybody that will have children in a marriage. You could discuss, you can go in for adoption, but the key point is, are you willing to cater for that child with love and respect? Because some women, even when they go for adoption, they still maltreat those children just because it is not their biological child. And we have seen cases where you take your sister's child and you still maltreat because it's not your biological child. It comes from within. Self-love, and so that you'll be able to love the next person. Like biblically we always say, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So women, be faithful, trust your partners, and take care of the children.
Women, be faithful, trust your partners, and take care of your children. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much, Vanessa, for the insight. Mange Venashus, thank you for giving your point of view as well.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's my pleasure.
And you back at home, what is your point of view, or what do you think about this paternity DNA test? Continue the debate at home. Educate one or the other. Educate your children. Educate the family as a whole. And women, be faithful. That is the take-home message of today. Do stay tuned to DBS Television and take the rendezvous next time. We'll be there. Goodbye.